a supportive, encouraging community that is going to allow people from all, walks of life, injuries, issues to be able to move and exercise, I felt like was an answer to that problem.
It's a bird.
It's a plane.
It's the Gloop guys.
Howdy, everybody. Welcome to the Gloop Guys Network. Today we have Dr. Dustin Jones, PT, ICE Certified Specialist for older adults, GCS, and CFL1. Dustin, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. Thank y'all for having me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Dustin, we're excited to have you on, excited to learn more about you and hear your story. So, Aaron, you want to roll off that first question?
Of course, we got to start with a softball, something nice and easy. How did you get started with physical therapy?
The good old question, right? Yeah, for me, it was a lot of exposure to mentors that I had, people I looked up to and where I wanted to be. And that really got me thinking about PT. My sister is one of them. Another individual, Tim DeFrancesco, he was a strength coach, or he is a strength coach, PT. I was exposed to those folks, pretty early on, and they kind of led me down the path of athletic training in undergrad and got my ATC and did the CSCS and all that stuff. And PT was kind of the next step in my mind. So I don't have the classic, I got hurt in high school and I had to go to PT and all that stuff. I think I had some pretty good exposure early on from those two folks that really just piqued my interest and wanted to continue on.
Yeah, I'm sort of the same way. It actually wasn't really an injury for me. It was more just, I don't know really what it was. I just like lifting, honestly. I liked lifting, and I was like, physical therapy sounds like a lot of fun. And I feel like there's some relation between the two, and I really didn't know what the relation was at the time. But, it turned out there is a lot of, moving the body around with physical therapy too.
Yeah. I think for me, it was I really wanted to work with athletic teams. And at the time, I kind of viewed it as a way for an unathletic 6'2" white guy to still be involved in a team environment, but not on the competitive field per se, right? And so I really, that was a draw for me. It was like the involvement in sports, which is the irony of why I'm here today, because I'm nowhere close to that at all. But that's definitely what got me in there.
So
it's a different kind of calling. It's a lot of people do have that, like the typical. There's nothing wrong with it. The injury. I had a semi injury, but I had two grandmothers who had ALS, so that kind of led me into to viewing it as well. But it's you kind of get that calling for it, that there's like you want to. One was the sports team, but two, it's the love for mobility and exercise, and this is kind of like that more expert level is how I looked at it. It's just like, like we have the trainers, but then there's that expert level of like physical therapy that's based all around it. So no, I love that, Dustin. That's great.
So how did you go from sports to geriatrics, older adults?
I'm still asking that question, man, to be honest. I actually was back at my alma mater here where I live in Lexington, Kentucky, and we had a panel discussion today with the students that are about to go on their first clinical rotation, and that question came up. And geriatrics in general, like if you would have asked PT school me, I would have thought like, I will quit the profession if you consider me like a geriatric fit. Like that's where I was at the time being. And what really got me was, I prepared so much to work with athletic teams, and I got my first outpatient job, and it kind of fit the bill for me. They had good relationships with some local high schools, really solid running community in the area. I was really set up to work with a lot of athletes. And one thing that they failed to tell me is that who you're actually going to be treating from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Right. So I was mainly working with older adults, and that was really difficult for me because I didn't have like a ton of training in that area. I was very cautious. I was winging it, to be honest. And that was kind of frustrating to be in that moment and not really have a ton of information to to lean on, not a lot of podcasts like your all's to consume. Like at the time, I mean, this was like 2012 when the only, like, if you were to go online, for example, to try and find some PT related information, you know, Kelly Starrett, K-Star was doing his thing. Mobility Watt is what it was called at the time. Now he's the Ready State. And then Urson Religioso was doing his thing. Modern Manual Therapy. He's still cranking out content. But there's no one talking about older adults and geriatrics. And that tension of me, like, knowing that I need to have more information and it wasn't out there just didn't sit well. That, and then also using a lot of the strength and conditioning principles that I would use with athletes, I started to apply them to those older adult patients basically out of ignorance. And I made a ton of mistakes, right? Like caused a lot of issues, a lot of DOMs, a lot of, you know, missed visits, cancellations. But when I did apply it appropriately to that person, I just saw such dramatic results compared to, like, you think about how much effort and time that you need to invest in someone like a well-trained athlete to improve their performance by 0.5, 1%, right? Like you're spending weeks upon weeks to get like that little bit out. And then I could apply that same intervention to Betty, who just got out of the hospital, and I could cut her timed up and go score almost by half in such a short period of time. And that percentage change in that population was addicting for me. I was like, oh, there's something here. And then couple that with there's not a lot of knowledge out there. I saw an opportunity as well and said, all right, I'm going to go all in on this demographic. I enjoy being with them. I love seeing their results, and there's no one talking about this stuff. So, yeah, that's kind of the long-winded answer that kind of led me away from sports and saying proudly that I'm a geriatric physical therapist.
Yeah, your second point, how just the progress you see in people, I think is probably the most addicting thing to me. Because like sometimes, you know, you get someone that just came home from the hospital, and it could be to the point where they're not even standing or walking anymore, and getting to take like the first few steps, getting like 5 times hit the stand, tug, DGI, whatever score, getting those things to improve is such a big quality of life thing. And all those little stories you get from people about like how, oh, I went to my fridge today and just took something out and I didn't even think about it. It's like,
Yeah.
we all take it so for granted, but it just feels so nice to see that progress in people.
Mm-hmm.
And you see the excitement when they get that too. It's just like with the athletes, it's like, okay, I'm getting back to like what I was doing before, and I got to get there. But for these older folks, it's you see the excitement of like, hey, I haven't been able to do that in so long, and I've a couple sessions and bam, I got it. Like you see how happy they get when they get that freedom and that mobility back, especially when they come home from the hospital, and how rewarding it is for them. It hits so much different for the therapist too.
Oh, 100%, man. And the implications of what we can provide these folks. I mean, what you said, like what the implications of like allowing someone to walk to their fridge, right? Like we could just say that this in passing, and for many of us on this call or listening later, it's like, okay, that sounds cool. But like, it's hard for us to put ourselves in their shoes to where just imagine being confined to your recliner for several weeks. Imagine maybe being able to get up from that recliner, but you're going to be scared. You're going to be afraid of a fall and the implications of it. You're probably going to limit your physical activity because you don't want to end up on the ground, right? And so for us, it's hard to like understand the weight of that situation. But that, like, the breakthrough to be able to walk confidently, maybe 20 feet to the fridge, and what that opens up for them in so many different areas, right? Like the implications for their progress are pretty profound. And I'm not trying to like downplay the progress that we can see in athletes, right? Like, yes, it's life-changing, you know, after you tear your ACL and you think, oh my gosh, my career's over. And then you recover and you make it back on the field after surgery and a long rehab process. Like, that's huge. And that's absolutely amazing. But I do think for many of the older adults we serve, there's a lot more on the line. And when you can help them maintain their independence for a little longer, improve their independence and their capacity, the overall impact is just profound for them and then everyone in their networks and families.
Yeah, I think that like the big difference, sort of what you're describing, is like in a sport, it's like if you can't play the sport, you could still, go to work, you can do a lot of things, you could go to school. If for an older adult that has all these trouble, maybe just got out of the hospital, they can't do the simple activities of daily living, dressing, grooming, get yourself ready for the day. That a lot of times, a lot of people probably watching the podcast are like, oh, that's a piece of cake. I never have to worry about it.
Something that we take for granted, it's like you take those mobility deficits for granted. And I mean, naturally so. I feel like, especially if we take our minds out of the PT setting, and if we weren't PTs, it's like, oh yeah, like I just put my shirt on, I get dressed, I get ready, I go for the day. It's like we see the differences of like, okay, if you can't do that, and then getting people back to doing that. Everybody else is just like, oh yeah, like I'm just doing things. They don't really have that perception of what it looks like to not be able to do that, and getting someone back to being able to do that.
Yeah, so that brings me to the other thing you were talking about, how no one talks about geriatric physical therapy. And it really is true. Like, even if you just type in on YouTube, like just older adult physical therapy, geriatric physical therapy, you'll see some stuff. And I think it is better than it is like maybe 5 or 10 years ago. But to find the different pages that really focus on that, and you get to see like some of the progress with patients or some of the different interventions, can be sort of tough, like especially when you're right out of school and all you really do is just look up physical therapy or stuff like that. It can be a little wonky for sure.
Huge discrepancy. And from, I think about this from the patient facing material, which that has, like you said, it's exploded if we look in the past 5 years. I think COVID-19 had a lot to do with that as well. Just not able to work with these folks or interact with them, that we had to shift a lot of things digitally. And so we saw a lot of, especially like exercise type videos and whatnot on YouTube. But in terms of clinician focused material, man, I've been doing this since 2016, 2017, and still there's still not a lot of folks talking about geriatrics. There's a very noticeable difference between that and, let's say, like the neuro crowd and then the ortho crowd, right? Which that for me, that is a big goal, is just to bring more awareness to this setting, this group of people, and then what we can provide them, because we rehab clinicians, PT, I throw OT in there as well. I think we're the most potent healthcare provider for this demographic for reasons that we, just discussed in terms of their independence, mobility, quality of life, that I hope the interest continues to grow. But yeah, there's comparatively very low representation in the realm of, older adults.
Mm-hmm. And to your point too, so I guess a little bit more on me. I'm in geriatrics, but I also do like home visits, and I also am in a independent living IL memory care. And a lot of times I end up having to do stuff that a physician would do, not necessarily like give them medications or anything, but I might diagnose something or figure out the signs and symptoms of something that point to a diagnosis. And because of that, they might have just never gone in and got a referral because of a physician. They might have just stayed home or just been like, you know what, I don't have to worry about it. I'll probably get better. And like have caught some things that could have been pretty detrimental, or that have happened and could have gotten a lot worse if they weren't caught as soon as they did. So I think the impact isn't really, like, people don't necessarily know the impact unless you had to deal with it, or you have a family member or close family member that's had to deal with the same thing.
Yeah. Are you doing Part B or Part A?
Part
or both?
Part B.
Okay, Part B. So bill and outpatient, Part B. And yeah, especially in that setting where you're on their turf, essentially, right? You're going into their home, their facility. That arena, whether you're doing Part B or Part A, when I say Part A, folks, that's like traditional home health. That is a very interesting area to where I think a lot of what we've already been talking about becomes more concrete, which I think it's more challenging for like the outpatient clinician to really grasp kind of the impact of disability and maybe pain, or how someone's life is really impacted with that injury that they're coming to you for, an outpatient, right? When you go into their home, you see the dishes stacking up weeks on end, the laundry that hasn't been washed in forever, the house that they're not able to maintain anymore. Like their life really starts to, I mean, literally fall apart and crumble. And you start to tangibly see a lot of these things that will also clue you in on, hey, if this is an issue, I bet this other thing's a big issue. I should probably ask about that, or I should screen for this. Or sometimes if you're like part A, if you're doing like an Oasis start of care, which I don't know if you all have had the pleasure of doing, terrible. It's the Oasis start of care is for the person in home health, nursing. It could be PT. Some states it can be OT as well. The first person does Oasis starter care, and it's basically a medical evaluation, and then you have a little bit of your PT eval on top of that, and it forces you to really screen and assess the different systems of the body and all the different variables that could really impact this person's life. And in that evaluation, you will often find out that some of the most potent things that you can do for people is not hand them the kettlebell to do the high intensity resistance training. It's to call the pharmacist. It's to schedule an appointment with the optometrist, something that's not quote unquote, in our lane, but we can identify that and get the ball rolling to make real meaningful change for these folks.
Yeah, and I think that's what I like the most about the home care setting. You can just see the environment that they're in all the time. And I mean, in an outpatient facility, you can also figure out ways to help that. It's just a little easier when you can see it. And like some people I've had as patients would be like, can you really do this if we don't have exercise equipment? Like we don't have an e-stim or an ice pack and a hot pack, and we don't have like weights and things like that. And it's like, yeah, when it comes down to it, honestly, body weight exercise for our population is pretty good. Like doing sit to stands, just walking, doing little balance things around your house are actually a pretty good way to get stronger, especially if you are a lower level person too.
Not only that, like you had just mentioned, going into like the home visits and whatnot, it's like we don't necessarily need all the fancy equipment there. They're just trying to get back to like their ADL regular functioning. So what's better than using their things around the home as the weights, as the resistance, as the functional activity, as the exercise? That's the best thing, is just training. I mean, in orthopedics, we talk about training for your sport and mimicking things back to the function. There it is right there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Get the backpack, the cast iron Dutch oven, the laundry basket, load it up. Like there's so many opportunities, right, to apply load if needed in the home that is probably going to increase the odds of them actually doing it when you're not there.
You get to show them that they can do it.
Yes, that's the key.
So one of the big things that we always talk about is compliance, doing your HEP, things like that. Do you have?
I know all my patients do them.
Of course.
I know anyone watching right now, any of my patients watching, I know that you're doing your home exercise while watching this. But anyhow, Dustin, Aaron, continue.
But Dustin, do you have any recommendations on how to improve patient compliance with HEPs?
Oh man, that's a great question. So a lot of my experience from the HEP standpoint is in the context of the home, and the most consistent thing, like action that I would take it related to their HEP was make it less. Like, and not when I say less, I don't say make it easier, but just less complicated, more simple. Take those 5 exercises and get down to 3. If 3 is too much, how can we take it down to 2, maybe even 1? And in the context of home and home health, usually there's different disciplines in. So like nursing may be in, speech, OT, PT, right? And nowadays, like the frequencies have been influenced a ton, and you may not get a ton of visits, or more part A than anything, but you've got different disciplines that are probably all talking to HEP, or you need to do something this many times a day, right? And I just learned to become very cognizant of that and just keep my recommendations very simple. And so I really try and focus on like, what is that key thing, right? It's like if they have noticeable quad weakness, right? And let's say I want to do maybe some type of loaded long arc quad that is easy for them to execute on their own. Or I could do a sit to stand because they're also limited in their independence with that transfer, right? Like if I could pick one or the other, right? Like obviously both would be awesome, but I'm going to go with that sit to stand, right? And so like what can I get the most bang for my buck? And just really err on the side of simplicity, especially knowing what else they have on their plate in those scenarios.
Yeah, I think
Without a doubt. 'Cause I feel like in that population too, it's you have to worry about like their endurance as well. As, if you give them like a home exercise that has or home exercise plan that has 4, 5, 6, 7 exercises on there, they're gonna run into more of a fatigue issue. I mean, me coming from the outpatient orthopedic setting, even for my like seniors, I typically will give them about 4 exercises max, and tell them just going throughout the dosage, like you'll know when you need to stop it. But yeah, given the population, I think that's a big part of it too.
Yeah, I think too, like you said, it sort of depends on the person. Like every once in a while, I'll get a person that's like a real go-getter, and they're like, "Give me 10 exercises, and I'm going to do them all the time." But of course, sometimes you have people that say that, and then they overdo it, and then end up doing rounds and rounds and rounds, and end up overdoing it. But one of my favorite things for people who are the opposite is just saying, like, just get up every hour and do something. Like, don't let yourself sit for hours and hours and hours and watch TV. Just do little things that you might like around the house. Maybe it's, take a little stroll outside. Maybe it's walk to the fridge, look what's in there, walk back. Even if it's like when you're watching TV, you just stand up for the commercials so that you're not sitting the entire time.
Yeah, I mean, I think y'all are spot on, and it's going to be different for each person, right? Like that's the beauty of it. But let's say we're in the home setting. Sedentary behavior is a big issue in that setting, and it just absolutely wrecks people. Really is a great environment to accelerate decline. And just breaking up sedentary behavior by standing up at a commercial break or when the show changes, like that, it's easy to think is that skilled care, right? Like, is that really going to do anything? Like in that population, that setting where deconditioning runs rampant, like, yes, that is significant. You've significantly improved their activity levels, broken up their sedentary behavior stretches, which we know is absolutely huge. I'm not going to do that with maybe Anna, who's an avid pickleball player, coming outpatient, right? Like that is going to be a waste of time for someone like Anna. So it is going to vary, obviously, based on the patient, but those are some really great principles. And another one that I think a lot about too, that I feel like the younger generation of PTs do a much better job at this than I would say like my generation. Like I graduated in 2011 for context, but a lot of the folks that I've interacted with, PTs, when it came to their formal training, the exercise prescription piece was not solid. There are some standout programs that would, teach some solid strength and conditioning principles and even cover a deadlift and a squat in their curriculum, right? But that was not the norm back then. And I'm not trying to talk like way back in my day, like, I mean, we're only talking 14, 15 years ago, but there's been a huge cultural shift related to PT and the embracing of exercise and movement. That was not necessarily the case when I was in school. And a lot of us that are a little bit more fitness forward, were more influenced outside of our training, like Con Ed, social media, obviously, versus a lot of programs now will include a lot of these principles and talk about movement and exercise. And there's a lot of programs that cover deadlifts and squats, and that's relatively new. All that to say, I think the newer generation has a really good understanding of functional movements that are going to translate to everyday activities and what we need to do in our lives. What a lot of my colleagues can be very guilty of is doing a lot of kind of isolated, single joint movements, focusing on almost all on anatomy and not as much on function. And I think that's really tough for our patients when I'm telling them I'm going to help you walk independently from here all the way out to your mailbox so you can get your mail. And then I hand them, some TheraBand and ask them to do long arc quads, some adductor ball squeezes, like an unweighted bridge. You like all these movements that we can reason like X, Y, and Z is going to contribute to this goal, but that's a pretty far stretch for our patients to truly grasp. So the use of those functional movements where there's a clear connection between what they're doing and what they want to be able to do, that is such a huge help for them actually doing those activities. So shout out to the new grads, the younger generation, because I feel like I've seen just some very promising trends in that regard of exercise selection for folks. And I think that has a lot of implications for HEP compliance.
Yeah, so when we graduated I graduated 2019, Tom, you graduated 2020, I believe. I think that we were sort of starting to be that way. We were trying to focus more on function than just on specific one muscle, one joint things. And it definitely helps. I think when we were there, it still had room to improve. And I think that, like you said, there's some programs that are great. There are some that aren't as good. But the focus on function movement instead of focusing on some of the other things, or especially even like modalities. Like we did a modalities class, and our professors were pretty much just like, these probably don't really help that much. There's a lot of evidence that it's like, it makes it feel good, but it's not going to really do anything long term. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, okay, so I'll never do these again.
Yeah, they were like, oh, this is stim. Don't. They're like, oh, yeah, okay, sounds good. Don't touch it.
All right. Appreciate it. Here's my check. Here's my tuition check.
Yeah. And it got to the point where I cared about them so little that I didn't do as well on the test because they said like I shouldn't care about it. Why am I going to care about it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we get to the board.
Yeah. When it comes to a lot of like the home exercise stuff too, in the beginning, honestly, I won't give my patients too many home exercises because I just like to focus on the in the clinic stuff. And instead, I tell them to focus on like the functional things. I'm like, listen, like I get somebody who's like an office worker or sitting in the desk, and even just a pair to the geriatric side, someone who's like sitting in a chair on the couch all day. I go, listen, when your neck starts to hurt, I want you just to think about just getting yourself up nice and tall. And I was like, if you just change it 5% of the time, just 5% of the time, you'll end up feeling a world of difference on it. And that's essentially what you guys were talking about too, with getting up and walking like at like a commercial during a TV or anything. It's you're changing that habit, even just 5-10% of the time, and it adds up. It compounds. It's investing like in your movement in yourself.
100%.
So we sort of were talking about like getting into, I guess, a little bit of the knowledge of spreading older adults to everybody. And you are a leader in the older adult division of the ICE, or Institute of Clinical Excellence. How do you get involved in that? And where do you see that, I guess, I don't know if I would say company, but where do you see that going in the future?
Yeah. So the first part of that question was, that kind of the moment or the time period where I was like, I want to focus on geriatrics, and just seeing that big gap of like, I need this knowledge and it's not out there. I did what y'all are doing. I started a podcast, and at the time it was called Senior Rehab Project. And I was like, I read this article. This was a really cool study. I want to talk to that author. Or, oh, I heard this person talk about this. I want to try and interview them. And so I would publish a podcast that was selfishly like, I wanted to learn from these folks so I could be better at my job and not feel like an absolute idiot every day. And that over time, just got to connect with some really awesome people, and Jeff Moore was one of them. So he's the CEO of the Institute of Clinical Excellence. And I'll never forget this because I would do a survey of the SRP listeners, or Senior Rehab Project. And I asked them about what topics you want to hear from, who do you want to have on, who do you want me to interview, all this type of stuff. And then I just had an open-ended question of like, what do you all want in the geriatric space that you can't get or don't have right now? And overwhelmingly, continuing education was the response. Because at the time, there's only one other company that really provided a lot of con ed related to geriatrics. MedBridge was coming on board, but they didn't have a lot of offerings as much as they do now. So there just wasn't a lot of stuff out there. And I admire the hell of Jeff. I was, following him for several years at that point, and I gave him that survey data. Like, hey man, if you want to, find someone to do this course, there's a lot of folks that are wanting it. And he was like, cool, you want to teach it? And I was like, no, like not at all, dude. That's not me. Like, I just like talking to folks. Like, I'm the home health guy driving around, and I'll do my interviews, at night. And he's like, sit and think on it. And I continue to think on it. And then he's like, you don't have to do it alone. And at that time, I'd been interacting online a lot with Christina Previtt, who we just had a lot of similar views, philosophies, and just, got along really well. And so we decided that, hey, let's do this course. And I told him I'd give it a year. And that was in 2017. And so we're here now. And so that evolved to, a live course, and then an online course, and the second online course, now to a full-blown certification. And for us, our goal and where we want to take it, right, is I'm trying to build an army of clinicians that wherever my family ends up, I could say, hey, go and see Aaron, go and see Tom. Like, you're going to be well taken care of. It's like, who's the type of clinician that you'd be cool sending your mom or your dad to, or your aunt or your uncle, right? And that's what we're trying to make, because right now in geriatrics, unfortunately, the bar is set very low. Like, you can go into a lot of these settings where you're mainly going to work with older adults, and you can make some good money, and you can check the boxes, and you can definitely get by. But the quality of care, by and large, is not great. And that is very frustrating for me to see. And to think of my family and people I love end up in a situation like that, receiving poor care. And I want to do whatever I can to prevent that. So part of it's like a selfish endeavor. But then part of it is like the desires I think we all have, right? That we want to be able to confidently say, hey, mom, go to this PT in town. They're awesome. They have this certification. You're going to be in good hands. So that's our goal. We do that through our 3 courses. So we have 2 online courses that are, they're cohort style. So they're very different than like a MedBridge or something like that, which MedBridge is great. Like, I'm not knocking on MedBridge. I've taken a ton of MedBridge courses. There's some super smart people on there. But the nature of those courses, like, you can sit it and forget it, right? Like, you can watch it, hit play, do laundry, cook, come back, take the quiz, right? And you'll check the box and get your Con Ed requirement. Ours is, weekly assignments, weekly calls. It is the opposite of the click play and walk away. So we want a lot of application, case studies galore, just make sure people are applying this before they're done. So we have those 2 online courses, and we have a weekend course that's just all exercise. We have 2 lectures for a total like hour and a half over the whole weekend. And then we're just moving the whole time. And a lot of that is some of these functional movements and exercise like we've been talking about, but how do we apply these in these more complex scenarios, but common in geriatrics, to be able to modify movement, to be able to mold a squat, a deadlift, a burpee, push press, clean, snatch to the older adult that's in front of you, and all the things that they're bringing to the table.
Yeah, I think that one of the big points that you made is about the quality of care for older adults, and it bothers me a lot too, honestly, because we've all heard of people who just go like, oh, get up, walk, do something. Like, they don't really think about the person. And I think a lot of it is just like caring about the person that you're treating. Like, there's so many times I see like clinicians that you can just tell just don't care. And because of that, they're not going to put effort in. They're not going to do a little extra things, really think about what they have to do. They'll go do some kicks and then get out. And no one's really going to get any better just doing some kicks. Well, there might be some people who might benefit from some kicks. But in the long run, it's just, to me, it's just caring about the person, like wanting them to improve, trying to try new things and push them in different ways to get where they want to go. But yeah, that definitely bothers me too, when people just, yeah, you're good, Tom.
No, I was saying I agree with you. I have an actual running list of what you hit the nail on the head with it, Dustin. Was I have a running list of quote doctors I would send my mom to. So when patients ask me like, "Hey, like I need this kind of doctor," I'm like, "This is a doctor I would send my mother to." And I now have a doctor who I have sent my mother to. So that's a new list that's starting. But no, I definitely agree, and I love that you're building this whole like cohort and group of clinicians who are super passionate about it and are getting invested in it and creating this like base level of like this is how we should be looking at things. This is how we should be treating these patients. This is how we get them better, and it gets people more passionate and more trusting about the clinicians too. And I love that it started out as, hey, do you want to teach the course? And it was like, I'm not sure, and boom, look where it is now. Like you never know when those opportunities are gonna come up. Yeah, you never know. And then, boom, here we are.
Yeah, and just how
Yeah.
you're like describing the course too, where it's not like you're a passive sort of like you said, like MedBridge. I've definitely done it where I put something on. I'm thinking of this while that's on over there. Like the fact that you actually have to think through it makes sense. Like you're going to learn better when you actively have to do things, you actively have to read things, than just putting it on in the background.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is super frustrating. And this is a lot on the person, right? Not necessarily like the course that they take, but it's just frustrating if you give up so much time and money to go to a weekend, right? And you walk away, 2, 3, 4 days out, and you're no different as a result, right? Like the faculty member teaching that doesn't want that to happen. Obviously you as a consumer, like you don't want that to happen either. And so the drive for application, that is a huge, huge goal for us. Like I want everyone that goes through, whether our weekend course or the cohorts, the online cohorts, level 1 or level 2, like Monday, like you got to be able to use something come Monday after you consume a lecture or a lab or whatever it may be. And honestly, a lot of that was also motivated by my experience in Con Ed and, preparing for my GCS or the Geriatric Certified Specialist, and to see so much theory, so much knowledge that I gained, but not necessarily clear on like how that really should change my treatment sessions and dosage and how I should actually like interact with folks. Just felt a huge gap there that really informed a lot of what we're trying to do with our older adult courses.
Yeah, so I guess if we're comparing GCS and ICE, ICE is a little more practical, and GCS is a little more just throw a bunch of knowledge at you, just to make sure you know all the knowledge.
Yeah, so I have my GCS. I'm a big fan of the Academy of Geriatric Physical Therapy. I'm a big fan of all the folks that have worked their asses off for decades to build up this certification. I benefited tremendously from the GCS, from the evaluation side, from medical screening. Medication management was super helpful, especially in the older adult population. On the eval side and gathering information that, kind of day 1, day 2, day 3, right, of really gathering all that info, screening, all that stuff, I gained a ton from the provided materials and what was available to me. After that is where it really started to struggle. All right, how do I pick like the actual exercises to use with that person? How do I dose that? How do I progress it? How do I regress it? What does a very thorough plan of care look like practically? Like, show me what a session looks like, like that tangible information. Just really struggle with that. And it may be different now in terms of material that is out. I don't know. But when I went through it, when did I sit for that? That was, I think 18 or 19 is when I sat for that. There wasn't. There's, a textbook, which was really good. And then there's some MedBridge courses at the time, but by and large, after the eval, I wanted more, I should say.
Yeah, so I think that sort of relates to new grads, or at least maybe when we were new grads, in that when I first got out of school, because I went right into in the house, right out of school.
Okay.
it was like we had all the knowledge in there, but sort of didn't know what to do with it. And like you said in the beginning today, there were definitely a few times where I destroyed a person's muscles.
We've all been there. We've all done it. We can admit we made some mistakes along the way, and we all learn.
Yeah, and they were like, "Well, I think that was our last day." I'm like, "Well, sorry about that. We're supposed to be a little bit sore." But yeah, that idea, it makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, one of my best ones, and I don't share this too often, but I feel comfortable with you all here. So I was doing a travel gig at a skilled nursing facility, and I was kind of the new guy in town, and I still had a lot of that kind of strength and conditioning, sports PT, just philosophy and treatment style. And so I was day one in this SNF, and I just taken over over Betty's care from the previous PT. Betty is ambulatory, and Betty, when I looked at her program, she was doing all seated Therax, so the ankle pumps, all that stuff. But she walks into the gym, and I'm like, well, why weren't we doing any standing activities with Betty? And so Betty wanted to be able to get up off the toilet without any help. I was like, all right, Betty, let's work on some squats. And so, I just went right after it. She would do, a set of 5 from an elevated service. She crushed it. I'd lowered it. All right, another set of 5. Awesome. Gave her, the little pink pastel dumbbell that they had, loaded it up. And I progressed the depth of that squat and the weight of that squat at least 4 to 5 times in that session. So I'm manipulating 2 different variables somewhat aggressively. I did not know that at the time, but now I'm like, all right, Dustin. So it was great though. Like, she got successful reps. She was feeling good. I go home. I'm feeling great. Like, we crushed that. And then the next day comes around, and I've got Betty on my caseload first thing in the morning. And I go to her room because I was going to get her to walk into the gym, and Betty's not there. Like, oh, okay. And usually in that setting, if folks haven't been in like a skilled nursing facility, it's often like you're battling other disciplines to work with it. So my first thought is like, damn it, OT. Like, OT took Betty. I was going to see her first, and no one knows where Betty is. And then I get to the charge nurse, and the charge nurse tells me, oh, Betty's in the hospital. What happened? And she's like, she's still in observation. She hasn't been admitted yet. So I can't see that information. Day goes on, and it's like our worst nightmare. We're like, oh my gosh, like, what did I do to Betty? I literally broke her. And she comes back later that day, and Betty was observed for roughly 12 hours for delayed onset muscle soreness. And pretty quick, right? But Betty woke up at like 5 or 6 in the morning, and she thought that she broke both of her femurs. Like, she thought she broke her legs.
Wow.
She hits her bell, and no one comes. And so she called 911 from her cell phone inside the SNF. EMS rolls up. The nursing staff has no clue what's going on. Like, what the hell? What's going on? Because they didn't respond to Betty's.
It matters in their own hands. I love Betty.
Yeah. And so the EMS rolls in and swoops Betty up and takes her to the freaking hospital. And they, ran, I forget what they ran, but some image. And, this visit cost, tens of thousands of dollars for some freaking DOMs. It could have been prevented with like one sentence for me. Hey, you may be a little uncomfortable here. It's not necessarily a bad thing. We'll work it out tomorrow.
Yeah.
It'll be okay, Betty.
My favorite thing now is, like, it doesn't matter how easy I think the initial eval, I'll always be like, you're probably going to be sore tomorrow, but it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't worry about
it. Every time.
Yeah.
You make that mistake once.
Yeah.
We've all done it though. We've all I've sent the patient home, and then the next day they cancel. I'm like, oh, why they cancel? Like, oh, the patient said they were in excruciating pain. I'm like, that's not good.
And I have students every once in a while too, and that's usually one of the big things too, because it's a lot of times people who want to go into sports who like all of us, want to like do sporty type things. So when they first start working in my population, where there's a lot more high risk people, they just sort of throw everything at them, and I'll be in my mind like in the corner, like, like I'm obviously not gonna let them do anything that's harmful, but I'm like, this is getting to be a little bit much. They're gonna be sore tomorrow, and then
Yeah.
like they won't say anything. They're like, okay, I think we're done for the day, and I'll just go to the patient. You're gonna be sore tomorrow. And I'm like,
Thanks for
right?
taking
It
one for
wasn't
the
me. It was the student.
Yeah.
team.
I will say to the student, like, I'll be like, okay, that was a little bit too much. We'll go over why things could be better, could be worse, but yeah,
Yeah.
got to
Yeah.
throw that in there at the end.
Yeah,
It's
man.
all about
And
learning and
I
growing.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's all about learning and growing. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. And I do want to preface that or just clarify that for anyone watching, listening, right, is we're not hating on the intensity. We're really critiquing when it was applied, right? Because like we do want to approach high intensities with these folks because they can handle it. However, you hardly ever start at that intensity that you read about in the Liftmore trial or any, geriatric strength and conditioning article that's talking about 80 to 85% of their 1 rep max, right? Like we start, we're testing the waters, we're being very cautious, we're seeing how they respond, and we are trying to get to that point, that high intensity. When you start there with a lot of folks, that's when you send them to the emergency department unnecessarily. But if I would have played it cool on day one, by fourth, fifth, sixth visit, Betty and I probably been rocking, right? Like we probably would have been getting some serious intensities, but I really shot myself in the foot on the front end by overshooting it.
Yeah.
But with that experience, now you were able to take that and bring it over to the next patient. So there's
100%.
that learning.
But yeah, like
Yep.
right out of school, it makes sense that you do that stuff. Like you didn't do anything wrong when it comes down to it. You really,
No.
you did everything right. It's just, you also didn't at the same time.
Yeah.
But now, Dustin, talking about that high intensity and that level that we can push these seniors to, that can kind of lead us right into something new that you're working on, which is Hyphen, which is your company, your clinic that you work with. So, what was the inspiration for starting that and getting that rolling?
Yeah, so Hyphen, it's a physical therapy clinic and gym for people over 60. And so you all experience this too, right? Like you work with folks under the umbrella of physical therapy, and depending on several variables, but a lot of times it can be insurance, third party payers. There can be a time where we have to discharge. And as a fitness forward clinician, right? And when I'm saying fitness forward, that's a phrase that we'll throw out a ton around ICE Physio. And all we're saying is that you are leading with fitness on your mind. Like someone's coming to you for their low back pain. Yes, we're going to handle their symptoms and reduce their symptoms as quickly as possible. But we're also trying to get this person as fit as possible, knowing the implications for their health, their quality of life, and their independence. And so the concept of fitness and improving people's fitness is woven through every ounce of our being and every treatment session and every plan of care. And with that in mind, when you have to discharge someone from physical therapy, you still have so much to offer this person. They have barely scratched the surface of what is capable when they continue on with that evidence-based, exercise prescription of higher intensities and getting them strong, also focusing on power and, really solid balance interventions based on their deficits and, improving their endurance and just all these things that we know are good for humans. To be able to do that for, instead of 6 weeks, maybe 6 years, the impact is tremendous. And so that really motivated me to find a way to continue to work with folks, to extend that runway. It was also heavily shaped by my experience in home health that 99% of the ailments and suffering that I would experience, I would say were preventable to some extent, or could have been shortened in terms of how, long they experience that disability or suffering. And a supportive, encouraging community that is going to allow people from all, walks of life, injuries, issues to be able to move and exercise, I felt like was an answer to that problem. Because as it stands right now, these folks don't have a lot of communities or places to be a part of. There's some silver sneakers classes and whatnot, but I mean, if anyone's spent any time around those, a lot of times they can be very underdosed, not challenging enough for individuals. Not always, but there's just not a lot of offerings for folks in that area. So we saw kind of a void in that market, especially in our area in Central Kentucky, and so we're trying to fill that with Hyphen.
Yeah, I think it's a big thing with me too, that like finding something that people can do when they're done that is still a challenge can be a challenge. The building I work in, which is IL, AL, and memory care, we also have an exercise physiologist, which her whole job is to either do one-on-one classes or she has classes every like Monday to Friday. So it's a nice thing to have in your back pocket, and even
That's
people
awesome.
in the community could actually go and join some of those classes too. But
That's pretty rare. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a new thing with our company. But yeah, you really don't see places like Hyphen around, honestly. And I sort of wish there were more of them. Like they really would benefit a lot of people.
Yeah, and that's the goal. To be honest, we want to make this a model that can be replicated by ICE trained clinicians that speak the same language, that aren't going to handle older adults with kid gloves per se. But I feel especially the offering of physical therapy and fitness under the same roof is a very unique service for this population, because they know they need to exercise, they know they need to move, they hear it from their doctors, from the Wall Street Journal, from Men's Health, women, like they hear it all over. But to actually go and exercise is a huge step for them when they have the knee replacement, the hip replacement, the heart condition, whatever the complication is, right? There's a lot of fear on their plate to take that leap and to start exercising. And as a physical therapist, I can't think of anyone else in the healthcare fitness space that is more equipped to handle those complexities than us. And so to offer PT, but then to say you're a PT lowers the barrier to entry tremendously for them to say, okay, I'll try that class, or I'll try, those one-on-one sessions. But then on the other side, when you are a gym, when you're offering fitness to offer PT, when they inevitably, as they're pushing it and raising their intensities, they have that random knee pain, the random flare up, whatever it may be, that you can prevent them from really falling off and take care of that very quickly so they stay in the gym and don't pause or cancel their membership. So those two services together under the same roof can really feed off of one another really well.
Yeah, and I think you sort of started to mention it, but the outside factors that people experience are definitely a huge barrier. Like even family members sometimes that are just like, oh no, don't do anything. Just sit down and we'll do everything for you.
Bad rest.
Yeah. We've
Yeah,
all seen it.
it's
Like I
yeah.
remember this one patient I had that her goal to me was, I want to be able to go down that step and watch TV with my family. So I said, okay, let's go down that step. Let's try it out. And her daughter saw me do it with her and just like screamed at me for 30 minutes. I think that she ended up actually telling me never to come back because I had her step down the step. And she did it perfectly fine. I wasn't even helping her. She was very good at it. And it's really that family member, and probably the rest of her family, honestly, that was the biggest hindrance. Like if they supported it and actually worked with her and tried that, she would have been able to do it and she would have been safe doing it too. But they're just so fearful that they stopped her from doing that. Maybe they stopped her from trying something like Hyphen or one of the like group exercise classes.
Yeah, the concept of risk and danger, I think, are very misconstrued with this population. Like so many well-meaning people, and it's their family. I would also say it's us too. I've had the privilege to spend hundreds of weekends with folks, thousands of clinicians. I've got to interact and teach a lot of folks how to load and how to do some of these different movements. And the amount of hesitation and fear around movement and load within PTs is staggering. And the things that I've heard of their beliefs of themselves that they're also imposing on their patients, and all the nocebos and wait, don't do that. That's dangerous. That's not safe. And so I think it's more of a societal problem, to be honest. It's in our profession. It's in, obviously we hear it a lot from physicians as well and different healthcare providers, but it's well-meaning, right? Like they're trying to prevent a problem, but the end result is actually more dangerous, right? Like you're discouraging movement. You are bringing fear, unnecessary fear, to where they're going to continue down this route of sedentarism or not challenging themselves. It's going to open the door to deconditioning. We'll often call this when helping hurts. Like well-meaning people, but they end up hurting these folks over the long haul. And I think for a lot of folks, for our profession, we have a lot of reflection to do in this department, that at least that I've witnessed. And I'm right there too, right? Like I definitely have noticed my patterns that I've challenged over the years, and I feel like I've really changed a lot of my biases and how I operate. But man, just interacting with a lot of clinicians, I've been really surprised. I think we're some of the biggest culprits to that issue.
Yeah, I definitely was someone who was like, I was guilty of it before, but like, oh, I don't want to push this person too much. Like, I'm afraid I'll make them too sore. I'm afraid that they can get hurt during it. And now I'm at a point where I'm like, I select exercises that are definitely like they're safe, but they're going to be challenging. And I love to challenge my patients, especially like let's talk about like balance related exercises. That's something that the senior population is always having trouble in dealing with. And I'll like present some of my senior patients with like, hey, we're going to do this balance exercise. Like, how do you feel about it? And they're like, well, I'm kind of nervous about it. I'm like, all right, good. I'm here, so we're going to do it. We're going to give it a try, and we're going to just roll with it. It's like, listen, now's the time to try it because it's the safest place for you to try it because I'm here. So I'm going to make sure nothing happens. And if something does happen, I've got you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like you said,
that's huge.
Yeah. I think like you said too, though, Dustin, it's not that a family member doesn't care about the person. It's just that, you don't know. You're doing what you think is best for that person. So you resist someone who you don't really know them when it comes down to it. Like, yes, they're a healthcare professional, but you have this thing that you've known your whole life. And when someone tries to go against the grain, it's always going to be a little bit of a fight to get past it. But yeah, in the long run, they hopefully mean well.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that's where, like, for us as clinicians, like that education piece for those family members goes a long way. Like for me in the outpatient setting, when one of like my seniors has like, one of their kids come, like I'm talking to my patient, but I'm also going to now try and educate like, hey daughter, like this is the things that she's doing at home right now. I need you to change this because you're actually not helping so much right now. And I think that education piece is huge too, that sometimes gets overlooked and missed.
Yeah, and showing them too, like what you mentioned with the step, like for that kid to see their parent do that step, like because in their mind they thought they couldn't, right?
Well, that was the weird thing about that day because they watched us do it, and to me, I was like, "Wow, this is great. We're doing fine."
Well, it didn't work.
Yeah, they're just like, no. I 100% agree with you though. A lot of times when they see you do stuff with something, they'll be like, "Oh, they can do that." And it might just be like maybe we have to teach them how to cue properly or how to guard properly so they feel a little bit more confident. But yeah, I think more often than not that will happen, that people will take your input, they'll use it, and then their family member will benefit because of it. So that, step situation is not as frequent.
Yeah,
yeah, it's going to happen.
My favorite though is when it's like when you show the daughter or son or whoever, like, oh, like look what mom or dad can do, and the initial reaction is just like, you've been making me do this whole entire time and you're the one who could do it, like you could do it right now. Like you get that reaction, I just start dying. Now you're in trouble, grandma. Sorry about that. You're never getting that help again.
That's great.
But that's what I think that you're setting up with Hyphen is awesome. It's like you offer those classes for them. What's a better place for them to do it than with someone who's highly trained and highly qualified and incredibly motivated to get them moving, and also knows what those injuries can look like, knows what that training looks like, and can offer that therapy side of it as well. You're just giving them that one-stop shop and making their lives so much better with it too.
Now, believe it or not, oh yeah, here you go, Dustin.
I just want to add some tangible examples to when we can extend our runway of impact with folks. So, we've done a lot of community activities related to this service where we'll coordinate hikes, we'll we'll do a bowling night, we'll just do different activities to get people together, as any gym is going to do, right? Like to build community and relationships. But we've been really intentional about doing things that you wouldn't associate with older adults. And the past couple years, we've done a retreat. So we've taken about 20 folks to this all-inclusive resort in the Dominican Republic, and we'll have a workshop in the morning, and then they're off, riding horses on the beach, or they are getting a surf lesson or kayaking, in the ocean, and just doing all these things. And what's been wild in those environments is to see how, like, where they were and then what they're willing to do now. And so some of the stories, like we've had, the first year we did it, over half of the folks that came had never touched the ocean.
Wow.
I'm in Kentucky, so a lot of folks are from Kentucky. We have creeks and rivers and lakes. We have lots of water, but some folks have never really traveled to the ocean. So the first time they touched the ocean was in crystal clear, like Caribbean water. And, some of them, they got on the horse for the first time in their lives. Some of them, they never touched the ocean before, and then they'd never been in a kayak, and they knocked that out together. Some of them had never traveled internationally. And so all that to say, the training allowed that. The training created an environment to where, they felt confident enough to get on the airplane, to take their carry-on and actually get it up into that overhead bin, and that they have the endurance to try and make their connecting flight. But then they also had the physical ability to back that up. And these folks, when you can provide that and go from 6 weeks to 6 years to months over decades, right? Of like being able to impact these people, the change that you can influence in their quality of life is just incredible. And from like a professional standpoint, it's been the most fulfilling thing that I've done, is to be kind of an engineer of that I felt to some extent in my one-on-one physical therapy career, but now in the context of fitness and working with these folks for a longer period of time, that's just taken that to a whole nother level, which I've absolutely loved.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I think that what that makes me think of is just the mentality of getting old. Like, well, we're all taught when we're old, we're going to be feeble or not going to be able to do anything. And just changing your mindset to be more, you know what? When I'm 80, 90, maybe I'll try something I never tried before. Maybe I'll do things that I never expected. And when you have that mindset, a lot of times you can achieve the goals that you want to. Of course, sometimes there's other circumstances that might be a barrier, but the mindset really is a huge part of that stuff.
100%. And it can be influenced.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
For sure.
That's beautiful what you're doing, man. That's wow. I'm at a loss for words, because I just think it's awesome that you got this community together and you were able to give them so many just different things. I think that's awesome.
I wouldn't
They're a
mind
bunch
going
of
to a
misfits,
resort.
for sure.
Say that again?
Yeah. They're a bunch of misfits.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, when you turn 60, hit us up, all right?
Well, I think I just turned 60 tomorrow, so I'll see you at the Dominican.
But believe it or not, we are already coming up to an hour. So we're probably going to wrap it up there. Dustin, do you have any other shout outs, anything else you want to talk about before we wrap it up?
No, man, that's it. I appreciate you all, doing what you're doing, having these conversations. Honestly, it's refreshing to just have like a casual long form interview, which I think we all can agree that these types of things are kind of becoming rare in the day and age of 30-second clips and whatnot. So yeah, I appreciate y'all. For anyone watching, listening, if you have any thoughts, questions, related to geriatrics, if you ever want to hear more from my mistakes and hopefully where, what I've learned, feel free to reach out. I'm pretty active on Instagram. DustinJones.dpt would be a good place. But yeah, I'd love to connect with anyone, especially if you're thinking about a shift to geriatrics and the most exciting specialization. I'm going to say that.
Thank you so much, Dustin. I'll make sure that we throw your Instagram handle in there as well. But thank you so much for coming on, man. We learned a lot. It's great.
Yeah, thanks, Dustin. We appreciate it a lot.
Oh yeah, appreciate y'all.
Have a nice night, everybody.